I'm so glad. I'm so glad that these courts are starting to crack down on some of these ridiculous, unconstitutional lockdown orders. Dude, I want to run for office on the platform of a constitutional amendment that says no more lockdowns ever. And here's the thing. I would absolutely run for office and support a position which says no more lockdowns ever. And I support a constitutional amendment that says there shall never be another lockdown again. Healthy quarantine is off the books. Shutting down businesses off the books. Banning churches can never happen again. We need clear constitutional amendments to prevent these little tyrants, politicians from acting like little dictator wannabes just because there's a public health crisis. It's absolutely preposterous that we have basically a dictatorship and a tyranny in the United States whenever there's a public health crisis. So we needed a new constitutional amendment that says, number one, there shall never ever be a lockdown. Doesn't matter if we're in a pandemic. Number two, there shall never ever be mandated business closures for public health reasons. Number three, there shall never ever be able to ban churches. Banning churches in the United States is completely unacceptable. It shall never happen again. Number four, our constitutional rights do not go away simply because of a public health crisis. It's absolutely ridiculous. This stuff should have never happened. You know what the government should be able to do? They should be able to do a real quarantine on somebody who's really got a deadly disease. And that's what the statutes that have existed for a long time in the United States contemplate, is the government taking one person who they know. Thanks, man. Taking one person who they know has a deadly disease or has been exposed to a deadly disease and doing a real quarantine. We didn't even do a real quarantine in coronavirus. If you found out you had coronavirus, we just sent you home and said, oh, go home, fight through it, come back into the hospital, I guess, if you get worse, but head on home and fight through it. So we didn't even do real quarantines. Instead, we did a healthy quarantine, which is not a quarantine, because a quarantine actually definitionally refers to somebody who's been exposed to a deadly disease or has a deadly disease. But so what we did is a lockdown. And this is, as a matter of constitutional values, the idea that we should have freedom and liberty. That's the point of this. We're supposed to be a free country. We're supposed to have liberty in this country. We're not supposed to be at the whims of whatever dictatorship or whatever executive order, whatever politician mandates. So that's the primary reason for supporting a new constitutional amendment that says no lockdowns, no business closures, no banning of church, and we still have our constitutional rights regardless of whether there's a public health emergency. And here's the thing. The government can still do a traditional quarantine on an individual that's got a deadly disease. The government can do, they have other things at their disposal, but they do not have, they should not have an ability to do a lockdown ever again. Ever, ever, ever again. These were the coronavirus lockdowns were reprehensible. They were awful. They did way more damage to the country in terms of even health than the virus did. But here's the main point. If this was a truly the deadliest disease of all time, and this was a disease that was had a really good chance of killing you if you got it, and it's highly contagious, and you're gonna die if you get it, the government doesn't need to do a lockdown because people will voluntarily stay home. Even with coronavirus, you saw people voluntarily social distancing, voluntarily working from home, even before these stupid lockdown orders went into effect. So if we ever do have a genuine, truly extremely deadly pandemic where you got a good chance of dying if you get it and it's extremely contagious, you don't need to have a government doing a lockdown anyways, because people will voluntarily lock down. The point is that the Democrats had to do lockdowns and government ordered lockdowns because they could not convince the American people that we're all going to die from coronavirus and everybody should be really scared and you're going to die, et cetera, et cetera. That's why they had to do the government order, because they couldn't just carry their burden of proof with the American people to say, hey, this is a very deadly disease. Everybody should stay in. Most people realized sooner or later that, hey, this thing's got a 99% survival rate, and these lockdowns and staying inside all the time is really destroying people's lives and ruining lives. And, the economic collapse is going to cause millions of children to starve worldwide. And, whoa, this was bad. So look, here's the thing. If you want people to lock down and stay at home and shut their businesses down, you need to convince them to do so voluntarily, because in the United States of America, we have something called liberty and freedom. And we should all be supporting a new constitutional amendment to ban forever. No more lockdowns, ever. No lockdowns, period. No banning of businesses, period. No banning of church, period. And of course, this is what the Constitution already says. There's nothing in the Constitution that says your rights go away and you don't have any rights anymore if people start to get sick. But to make it clear, because I guess it wasn't clear enough, we need to clarify this and say our constitutional rights do not go away if people start to get sick. And I hope everybody joins me in supporting this constitutional